Welcome to Inside Out, a conversation series that takes slowness as its method. We begin from the belief that an artist is never only their finished work. A practice is also shaped by memory, friendship, obsession, humor, survival, subculture, and the strange accumulation of experiences that make someone who they are. Today's guest is Jerry White Jr. Jerry is a filmmaker, musician, writer. He began mixed films as a teenager through home movies and public access television in Metro Detroit. Later studied at USA Schools of Cinematic Arts, am I right? Yeah. And
hmm
has continued to move across film, writing, music, and collaborative creative communities. He has also described himself very correctly, I think, as someone drawn to niche creative subcultures, outsider artists, and passionate amateurs. Jared, thank you for being here today. To begin simply, would you introduce yourself in your own words instead of my phrasing?
But your phrasing was so good, Valkyrie. Let me see. I'm Jerry White Jr., and I'm trying to live a creative life, and I value creative collaboration maybe more than any other aspect of creative projects. Maybe expression, personal expression being a close second. And yeah, I like long walks, and I like Uh, apparently, I like Mexican food more than I realize because I've been enjoying Mexican food in Asia, which is a weird place to do that. Um, but yeah, I am, as Valkyrie said, a filmmaker and musician, and I write. And a friend of mine reminded me of something I said yesterday, um, which is how did I phrase it? I'm like quoting myself, but I really like the quote that she gave me that I forgot that I said. It has something to do with saying, yes, you could have done more, but that doesn't mean that you haven't done enough. And this is something that in my creative work, I often struggle with because I feel like I've done 1/1000th of the projects that I've wanted to do or the ideas that I've had. But ideas are really cheap. They're wonderful, but they come to us. They're free. They're like breathing. But the seeing an idea through to the end and getting it into some kind of finished form is like the white whale that I'm always hunting.
hmm And before we ask anything, can you tell us where you at right now?
Hmm. I am in Taipei in a Airbnb, and I've been traveling since, so it's mid-May, just about 2026, and I've been traveling since the beginning of the year. I was in Thailand and then China for 3 months, and I have about a year longer on this trip in which I'm working on my creative projects, although not always as diligently as I'd like to. But it's also about that part of living life creatively that's important to me and meeting new people and having experiences that work as fuel for future creative works.
hmm And I mean, let me just ask the first question because I think it's really
Mm.
interesting to start the conversation even further. If this is a record that may remain for a really long time, what do you hope people carry with them after spending this time with you today?
Yeah, that is a good question. I do think about legacy more often than I think is maybe healthy.
hmm
Um, and I just would be shocked already if people carry anything for a very long time because there's so much content me being made daily, and creative works being made daily. But that's not including all of the creativity and all the work that's been made every day for the last thousands and thousands of years. And we've forgotten so many people. So if this record is remembered, first of all, thank you for remembering. And secondly, I would say just very pragmatically that hopefully I've left enough breadcrumbs to my work, both in physical media and digitally, that you can find it. If you do a search for Jerry White Jr. in quotes, hopefully there's not that many other Jerry White Juniors. So you can find stuff that I've done. And I hope that the work speaks through time, but ultimately, I'm just thankful for anyone giving a shit.
I like that. So let me ask this. You know, as artists, we have so many titles, we have so many hats on our head all the time. Before you had a name for what you were doing, before filmmaker, writer, or musician, what first pulled you in? Was it storytelling, performance, the camera itself, being with other people, building worlds, or something harder to name?
Uh, that's a good question, and I remember very clearly as young as as young as my memories go back to. So really early childhood, I loved two things. I loved singing, uh, and especially like rock and roll songs, whatever that meant back then. Very dated, random music that I would have heard through my parents, really. And I liked acting. So acting as a child for me meant just making things up in the house. But it also meant school plays occasionally, and then after school theater productions as I got a little older. But the idea of being a singer or rock star was very embedded in my brain as a child. Um, but a strong third, and I didn't call myself this, but that storyteller thing, I had a neighborhood friend when I was a kid, and we would do these kind of improvisational plays, which also kind of looks like LARPing, although I've never LARPed, live action role play. But we would assume these characters and explore in the backyard, and it was telling a story that was serialized. So that means wherever the day we had to like go home, the next day or the next time we hung out, we would pick up the story and it would be like the next episode. Um, and I don't know how long we did that, but it's a really strong memory of my childhood, and it was probably during summer vacation.
Hmm.
But it didn't have a word for that. It was just a form of play and a form of creative play, right? Like creative collaboration that continues in my DNA now.
Yeah. And so let me just ask after that, because you mentioned a lot of things happened in your young age. I remember that you started making films as a teenager, with home movies and public access television. So looking back now, what do you think those early DIY beginnings gave you that formal training never could?
Mm. Well, one of just the things that it gave me was this joy and this love of creative collaboration and play. So it really did connect to those like making up stories in the backyard with my friend. But now we had a camera, and now we would edit it and get different angles, and it it definitely gave me this looseness of this again, it's overused this term, but this punk rock, attitude of fuck it, just do it. And if anything, formal training later hurt that instinct that I had built. Because that fuck it, just do it is not the USC mantra. And there are things that I'm appreciative that I learned in formal training, but it's so hard to get together a film in particular. I think a lot of creative works are difficult. The number of people you often need for a movie, um, and it depends on the kind of movie you're telling, but it's just a lot. And I feel that formal training often gave me more ways to say no. Like, no, we can't do this. We don't really have the budget. We can't do this properly. This camera's not good enough. And the play as a child, it was just all these reasons to say yes. It's just play, do it, let's go, fuck it, it'll be fun. And now the product, of course, wasn't always very legible, but the audience loved it because the audience was us. And I don't know if I'll ever have a premiere as thrilling as the premiere of watching raw footage we just shot in the front yard
Mhm.
in someone's bedroom on their TV. So it gave me a lot that honestly, despite there being a documentary about my old public access TV show, um, I still find ways to unpack and like or unravel this onion layer of the things that that taught me. So if I had to sum it up though, like making things with your friends
Mhm.
can be just one of the most wonderful things in the world, and I recommend it.
Mm-hmm. And I think from what you were just telling us, there's one thing that really touches me is when you were talking about that from the training, let's say from the institutional training, what you got is oftentimes we're saying no, we don't have this, we don't have that. There are so many limitations. But just from a kid's perspective, we're always saying yes, we want to do this, we want to do that. I think there's a greater philosophy
Mm,
underlying this statement. Because what I found is actually it's instead of a binary or dichotomy from this to, younger self or institutional self, I am more seeing there's a third self in between.
mm,
It could be standing somewhere else or just looking from another perspective. But I felt there's another self that observing the institutional self and the younger self, or like the non-institutional self, the wild self. So I
mm,
felt the meta awareness here is really interesting that you're actually looking at two of yourselves from another perspective, and you can have this summarization of it. So that's something I felt is really intriguing for me because
mm.
I mean, it's a simple idea or a simple statement that you're saying. I tend to say no, I tend to say yes as a kid, but I mean, I'm just really, that's something hit me. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because I also had a similar background. When I was young, I want to do a lot of things. I don't scare.
Right.
I don't care. I just want to do it and then I do it. Always is yes, because I want to do it. I'm going to do it. But then after the training background, there are just so many factors and so many things that we have to think about. And every time when you think about, you haven't even moved one step away, you just start telling yourself, no. Probably
Yeah.
not. Maybe I can, but that's something I am really, you got me there. So let's say,
I want to say too,
Mhm.
just to add on to that again,
Mhm.
like it's heartbreaking to me, but I have seen people like that know that they get from institutional learning sometimes becomes final. Like it stops them completely. I had a good friend who went to the LaGuardia Performing Arts High School. It's the
Mhm.
famous school in New York, to be a singer, and she loved singing, and it broke her of singing after that because their standard was so high and their rules were so many. She told me a lot about it. I met her in her 30s. So this had echoed from her teen years to her 30s where she just it broke or not just broke her love of it, it just destroyed any like desire she had any left. So I'm thankful that my training didn't do that.
Mhm.
But and I know this may sound like now we're shitting on institutional learning, and I do value that, but it's risky. And so I think that is why, as you said at the top, I do have this passionate amateur respect because
Mhm.
I try to continue to nurture that side of me because I've seen the danger
Mhm.
of when we grow up, quote unquote, and no longer give ourselves permission.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I totally felt that. But I mean, I had a similar experience. Instead of I'm just, kind of stopped there, it's more like something else, but also it's something not really positive or let's say negative that institutional training or that experience brought to me, which is I spent 6 years from my let me see, 12 years old all the way to 18 years old. I spent those 2 years, the whole teenager life in a really strict professional
Mm,
Chinese style educational settings in China.
Mm.
all the way back to China. And now it's an art school. So of course there's no freedom for you to go out as a human being. And you're always locked in the school and you have a really strict schedule from 7 a.m. all the way to 9 p.m.
Oh,
And
wow. Wow.
every hour is fully scheduled. You have half of the day for, humanity courses, Chinese, math, English, all that stuff. And then half of the day is strict training with your dance, with all those, technical stuff. I mean, it was great, but actually it completely destroyed me.
Mm.
Not destroyed me, but destroyed a part of me. Let's say that because before I went to the art school as a kid, all I want just dance. I love dancing. That's it.
Mm.
But after I get into the art school, you have to kick your leg all the way to your head. Otherwise, you're not dancing. Your teacher will say shit to you, they will beat you. That's the Chinese
Oh,
educational
ah.
style, right? And you cannot get fat. And that's the thing for girls in in dance. And it was really brutal because that's the teenager life. You need to eat good and get nutrition so you can
Mm.
grow taller, all that stuff. But no, your teacher will restrict your calories intake every day. They will put a weight scale in front of your cafeteria. So before you go into the cafeteria getting your lunch, you have to weight yourself.
Mm.
For example,
Wow.
I was 43rd kilograms. After eating the lunch, you get out, you have to weight yourself again. If your weight is going up, your teacher will punish you in front of the cafeteria, which right now, if we think about that, of course it's inhumane because food has its own weight, but during that
And you're still
time,
a child. You're still growing too.
yeah,
Like,
they will literally punish us. When I use this word, I meant it. It's real punishment. We were crying, there's blood, from different kinds of punishment. So, I mean, after that 6 years, I mean, this is definitely different with your friends, like two different examples, two different cases. But what I meant is the institutional training sometimes can really ruin a part of us. And how that matters, or that's not the correct word. What I meant is, but we still have choices for ourselves to save us back. So basically, after those
yeah.
6 years in my life, I still have these different injuries that I
Mm.
accidentally had from that 6 years. And besides physical injuries, I also have a lot of mental trauma.
Sure.
Even it passed to me right now, and I'm still kind of scared of it. But anyways, what I'm saying is we have choices. Still, those things probably gonna be like nightmares sometimes will come back to me, but we have choices. We have choice, we have different pathways to choose whether you want to go on, forget about it. I mean, don't forget about it, it's your experience. But you can always choose something else. And that's something that I felt really resonant with you when you were saying something earlier. I don't know if you
Mm.
still remember that or not. You were saying that you want to spend your life creatively. That's something I felt there. Because
Mm.
even 2 years ago, I have no idea what do you mean by spending your life creatively. I was
Mm.
thinking, oh, I'm an artist, so I'm doing a lot of creative stuff in my work as an artist, creating my work creatively. But if you're telling me spending your life creatively, I will be like, what does that mean? But now I get it. That's what I meant. Everything. You have your own
Mm.
choice and also spending your life creatively. So
Yeah, I
that's
guess that,
yeah.
yeah, that's one of my works is that like, and I'm not reinventing the wheel. A lot of us artists can criticize ourselves for how our work is derivative. I'm not trying to claim I'm doing something no one has done before, but in my own way, like this year, I'm traveling. I don't come from a wealthy family.
Mhm.
I'm doing this in part because I've made choices in my life where I don't have kids. I'm not married. I haven't wanted to do those things really. And I avoided the kind of pressures of get the stable job, live in the stable place, get the house. And I think that life can work for a lot of people, but it definitely I feel for me would have gotten in the way of living a creative life the way I wanted to.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, that I guess that is my my bigger project uh, is this daily like it doesn't create an artifact, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not something I can necessarily share as a piece. But when I meet people and talk to them or do an interview like this, like it can come out. Um, but I wanted to say too that that's just so harrowing what you went through, and again, like comparing it to what I heard about the LaGuardia school process is I imagine what your school and what LaGuardia is trying to do is shape the best of the best. Like you are going to be the absolute top of your field.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, not a lot of people can stand at the top. And I think what it creates is if you don't make it to the top, then you're worthless. It's like, then give up. If, you know,
Mm-hmm.
who wants to be third? As if there's no joy in purely just dancing for itself or just singing for the love of it itself. And there are a lot of artists, say musicians that I love, that they don't have the best voice ever. In fact, I it's not like I listen to a lot of like opera. No disrespect against opera, but I'm saying like from a technical standpoint, their voice can do things that a lot of singers I listen to can't do. But I'm not listening to it for their
Mm-hmm.
perfection.
Yeah.
And the same thing with like how good they are at guitar or how good the camera is that they shot their movie on. It all comes down to more like like vibe and what resonates with you. And you know, we have there always are going to be those professionals that are at the top, whatever that means. Um, but you and I have talked about this before too. If you become the top dancer in the world, they're going to stick you in a like show doing the Nutcracker every season. Like you won't necessarily be able to do super creative work. You're going to do work that a mass audience wants to see at a top level. And I don't know, as an artist, that doesn't really sound that appealing to me.
Yeah, I think we're talking about, I mean, this it sounds really familiar. When I was younger, I think I was probably 18-year-old, one of my teacher, I don't really remember which teacher, but she used to told us this story that not even a story, she was just asking this question really randomly. She said, "Guys, question." And we're like, "What question?" As an 18-year-old kid, you have no idea about this whole world. You're still trying to learn everything. She said, "Do you want to be an engineer or do you want to be a brick?"
Oh, that's great.
You
That's
got
great.
it? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what I got it from the thing you were sharing about. You might be a top dancer in the field, but you're just gonna be placed at the top level, dance company, dancing Nutcracker every season. So that's something that I just directly recalled from my experience when I heard that story. Because I mean, that was an interesting story. We're talking if you're thinking about that question rationally, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that rationally. You're comparing a human being with an object. It doesn't even it just doesn't
Right.
make any sense. But then if you start thinking the logic behind it, do you want to be an engineer or do you want to be a brick? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for artists, we know which way we're going. I mean, this example might be too extreme, but we definitely can get something from it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And also just another thing though, from your what you were saying about like spending your life creatively, creative practice of your life. That just remind me another sentence. I don't even remember where I heard it or I heard that sentence or where I saw it on some book. It was saying something like we wait, let me think how
Mm-hmm.
what it says. It was saying something like you are your life is your own working in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing in my mind. That was the sentence in my mind, stuck in my mind when you were saying that you're traveling, you have choices, you can choose a way that majority of people spending their life with, but you pick another one. and you're enjoying it and you're still
Mm-mm-mm.
interacting and you're still creating something even new, even fresher for you. So that's something. I was like, yeah. And let me ask you this. Was there something in that early environment? You were talking about your teenager life and
Mm.
you had a lot of choices and you were playing around. Was there something in that early environment, some freedom, some roughness, some chaos that still lives in your work now?
100%. In
Mhm,
fact, I more and more try to go and find that and
mhm,
recreate that.
mhm,
And it's like it's trying to I think in some ways I'm trying to merge the best of both worlds. I
mhm,
am trying to utilize much of what I learned institutionally at USC or just working on films over the years. Um, but then bring over some spirit and energy from those early youthful experiments. I know that the director Peter Jackson, who did Lord of the Rings and lots of other films, he talks about how he makes movies through the lens of the things he was obsessed with when he was 12.
mhm,
And to some that might sound like Arrested Development, like he hasn't grown up. But again, he's done very well from himself, so it's worked for him that he found the things that he was passionate about, and obviously his craft has just continued to improve through his life. But he's still energized by the things that inspired him when he was younger.
mhm,
And so my energy may not come from a specific um, type of story, but a an energy or a creative, again, that creative collaboration.
mhm,
Something that I didn't realize how rich I was when I was making things as a teenager. It's how much we were suburban kids. So we were like working class or middle class kids, most of us. And so, we had our summers off. Some of us maybe had to work a part time job, but not all of us. So we had time. We didn't have money, but we had time. So I had access to all of these other kind of freely creative amateurs that wanted to just do something for fun. As an adult, just finding some other adult with time is already really fucking hard. So time alone is tough. Um, and I want people to be compensated for their work, and I want to be compensated for my work. However, I often work with little to no budget. So I will work in fair exchange, and we've talked about fair exchange before too. But finding adults who similarly in their limited spare time are down to like make a creative project, and maybe the pay is deferred, or maybe there's no pay for any of us, but we still want to make something.
mhm,
But finding that is so tough at this age. And so I look back, I'm like, man, if I had the kind of organizational institutional knowledge now, I could have made these incredible feature films, in my youth, because I had so much time. But that's often the trade, right? We never have everything all at once. So I had a lot of time then, and I had access to a lot of people. I have less time now and fewer people, but more organizational and institutional knowledge. So it's this challenge of trying to still make things happen, but also without money. And just really quick to tie it back to our schooling experience, it's one thing to be an artist. We can all be artists. We can all be filmmakers. We can all be dancers. I could be a dancer, um, but it doesn't mean I'm going to make a living as a dancer or make a living as a singer. So I do still want to make a living as a filmmaker, but I I am content and I am committed enough to do this, even if it's not paying my bills. And I know that is really tough for a lot of people. And they get in their mind like, oh, to be a professional dancer means I am paying for my life through my dance. And I respect the people who can pull that off. in any field, but in the arts, I find increasingly it's more and more difficult. So you end up having artists who come from wealthy families because those are the people who can afford to do these things. And I don't want to live in a world where it's only rich people singing and dancing and making
Yeah.
movies. So I've found ways to, say yes to my work at a lower budget, just because I don't want to give it up, but I'm not going to say it's easy.
Hmm. Yeah. I totally felt that because I mean, compared to a lot of my friends, I'm always the youngest one. I don't know. But I mean, let's say 80% of my friends are much older than me. I mean,
Mm,
age, you know. And
mm,
I actually found out that when I was around, I mean, 18-ish, and I just look around like, oh, all my close friends are all at least 10 years older than me. I mean, I have my peers. We can call them classmates. We can call them,
mm,
like something classmates, peers, but we can't really be friends. That's how I felt from a young
mm,
age. I can only talk openly, freely with my friends who are older than me.
mm,
That's something I found from my early stage. So I mean, just talking about that, I felt there's something kind of, like interesting between our emails. I mean, a lot of people probably don't know how me and Jerry met each other, how we knew each other, but it was because of last year I had a show in Detroit and Jerry was one of the audience, and that's how we knew each other. Jerry stopped me when I was trying to win out, and we talked briefly, and after that we had several emails, and that was something really rare for me.
mm,
Because during those emails, I felt something pretty rare. Let's say that it was a sense of humanity. Because I came to the States in 2022, where I was in my MFA program. I had a lot of different types of people around me, or identities, or roles, right? I had professors, classmates, peers, mentors, but that was during our conversation, I felt there's a real sense of humane. And that was why I think I started having this more deeper conversation with you about a lot of the plans for for the companies that I'm founding, and for a lot of plans, and even for a lot of whatever questions. Oh, how are you gonna do this? How are you gonna do that? How
mm,
are you handling this? So, I mean, these are a lot of other things, but I want to go back to your view to this world, or your position, or the way that you're seeing the art, the world.
mm,
So you say that you are drawn to niche creative subcultures, outsider artists, and passionate amateurs. I want to stay with that for a while, for a
mm.
second. What do you recognize in those people? What are they holding on to that the mainstream often loses?
The first thing that comes to mind is authenticity. Um, but then the thing that comes to mind immediately is like, I feel like I have to admit or just acknowledge that I watch Marvel movies. I too, like, I'm not a purist about because as a teenager too, there was this feeling of like, don't be a normie mainstream person. We were
Mhm.
into cooler music, so I still have this struggle of like, yeah, there are mainstream things that I love, but when it comes to what gets to me more deeply, if I watch a Marvel movie, I can have fun and then I like let it go. But there is a humanity that I think that too much polish and too high of a budget, it's really hard to maintain um, a voice in that
Yeah.
work. So whether it's film, and film already has a lot of voices, so I don't consider film an authorial um, medium. In
Hmm.
fact, at USC, one of the things that they had a rule was, in your credits, don't have a film by. And you see that often, and it's a marketing thing. And I totally agree with it. Like, I don't want a film by Jerry White Jr. unless I shot and edited and wrote and did literally all of it. Then it's a creative work, and director is just one title.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so film is already difficult to have an authorial voice, but music, I think, and writing certainly can. But again, the more polished, um, the more, if the artist is trying to trace a chase a trend,
Mm-hmm.
then again they're losing what they might have to say that's more original. And your work in particular, when I saw your piece, and when I stopped her, it was to tell her that hers was my favorite performance of that night. And I love this dance festival in Detroit. I've been several years. But I didn't even know who she was because her entire performance, her face is covered. So I had to like deduce afterward, who I'm like, oh, that's the only person I don't recognize. Um, but again, you had a really strong, unique authorial voice. Um, and it wasn't like anything else that I was seeing. And I think I'm often looking for that. Um, but also, of course, I have my quirks in my taste. I'm not just looking for an outsider artist or niche.
Mm-hmm.
It also has to somehow fit into my particular taste buds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, but when I do find that, when I do connect with that, I feel like I'm in conversation more with that artist, whether they're living or dead. I just feel
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, they're really, I don't know. I think connection is the other part of it. So authenticity, but I'm looking to connect with their humanity. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
the more polish there is, it's just the harder to connect with the humanity for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think I had a follow-up question for that
Hmm.
because when you're talking about, like, you talk about authenticity, you talk about connections. I was going to ask, do you think you're drawn to them because of aesthetics, because of ethics, because of sincerity, or because they remind you something about yourself? But then you talk about connection, because when you're talking about connections, I somehow can sort of feel the a little bit shadow from it.
Hmm.
It reminds you a part of you or something that you even hard to describe. What is it?
Yeah, I think, let me think. I mean, I think of your performance as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it's so outside of my experience. My dancing experience begins and ends on dance floors at clubs. But as far as any kind of training or really even understanding of that world, I like have none. Um, and so I certainly in your work, oh, that reminds me of my approach. Like definitely like not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think just I recognize someone who had a vision. Um, and so as someone who myself, I often long to have a vision. I want to have a vision, even if it's a silly vision. Like vision may sound like it has to be this profound, deep Nietzschean thing, but it can just be, what you want to say or a vibe you want to convey. So you had a very strong sense of that, and I think that in my maybe in my mind as I'm talking it out now, I feel like this is another person navigating the world who is trying to say something maybe a little less obvious,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and more personal to them. And so yeah, I think sometimes the connection certainly can be through like that reminds me of me, but sometimes it can just be like, oh, that reminds me of a similar like intention that I
Mm-hmm.
might have, even if the process or the result is aesthetically totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I felt that I mean connection. Well, that just reminds me everything has its connection. I mean, sometimes you probably don't feel the connection, but if you think deeper about two things or objects or events that happened before, you can certainly find the connections. So let me ask you this. One thing that also drawn me to is your bio, the bio that you
Mm,
sent me, because I felt
okay.
there's a strong humor from your
Mm,
writing. So I want to ask about humor because the way you
mm.
write about yourself has a very specific tone, right? It's funny, self-aware, a little sly, but also very human. So what role does humor actually play in your life and work? Is it a shield, a mode of truth-telling, a way of surviving simplification, or all of the above?
So I have made works in the past,
Mm-hmm.
especially like in this period after my teen years,
Mm-hmm.
and into USC time, where I intentionally, I think, very intentionally made it without any humor. Um, I find those to be some of my most embarrassing things to look back on. Not always, but I think sometimes in stripping away the humor, I was stripping away myself because humor has always been so central to my character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far back as I can remember. In fact, I mean, and this also goes maybe a long way to say why I am who I am and living my life the way I've lived my life. But one of the things I was called a lot as a child, like by other classmates, the word maybe most often used was weird. And weird is not meant as a compliment when you're a kid.
Mm-hmm.
um, but even when I was young, it didn't take long for me to like that didn't hurt me because I thought weird was interesting. Uh, Weird is the opposite of boring.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's how I saw it as a child. That said, there can be good weird and bad weird. There's definitely bad weird. Um, but through my weirdness, it wasn't just that I was being avant garde as a child. It wasn't that. It was usually through my humor. I was saying something really funny and goofy or silly, and that was where the weird label was thrown on me. So I just think humor is deeply part of who I am. I Not to compare myself to Jim Carrey, but he comes to mind, the actor comedian Jim Carrey, because he was so well known for being funny, and
Mm-hmm.
then he started doing dramatic roles, and
Yeah.
that's really hard for a lot of people to like. Or Robin Williams was another one, uh, and so we have serious sides like funny people, goofy people. We're three dimensional. Um, so I think much like a Robin Williams or Jim Carrey, like in my work, I want to explore humor because it's part of who I am, but I
Mm-hmm.
also don't want to be bound by it. But I run the similar risk of if I think I'm going to make this serious work, it can become too precious and maybe lose something. So it's just something I have to be aware of. But at the end of the day, simplified, I just think it would be foolish of me to ignore like how much humor exists in my life. And with bios, I've written a lot of bios, as we all have as artists. We have to create different bios. And so I've had the straight laced bio. I still have some online that are that way, but I always feel a little weird about them because they become so clinical and
Mm-hmm.
so formulated that I have now, it's a cookie cutter.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can I say I appreciate outsider artists and niches and subculture when my bio sounds like every other fucking bio? So this push and pull, um, I just often have this push and pull, and depending on the day, I may decide like no, 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 even if it's silly or if it doesn't quite fit, I would be doing a disjustice to myself if I didn't insert some humor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that. And since we're talking about your bio, so let's talk about even more about your bio. You
Okay.
wrote that no one can really do justice to an entire human being in a few hundred words. And I think that's true. I really think that's true. So let me ask this way. What do people most often miss about you when they meet the bio first and the person second?
Hmm. I think depending on the bio, uh, sometimes it will come off too straight-laced and serious.
Mhm.
So they may think that I mean, like you, I feel quite confident in my vocabulary and ways to navigate talking about my craft, but that may make me sound more of an academic in
Mhm.
certain places. So I want to avoid that, even though I have been an academic and I may again in the future be teaching. Um, yeah, and I think too that I've recently been seeing this Orson Welles quote where he talks about how art is one of the things lowest on his list of consideration in life, even though he did dedicate himself to being a filmmaker and actor.
Mhm.
But above, and I'm butchering the quote, but he said, you know, above that is friendship and living life and things like that. And I do that resonates with me. He talks about how he often would cast his friends in his work,
Mhm.
even if they weren't really appropriate for the role, but
Mhm.
he doesn't regret it because he thinks being appropriate for the role is actually less important than
Yeah.
working with your friends. So maybe it might seem to people that my work is the most important thing in my life. And I don't think that's necessarily true. It is like a thing I think about every day. Uh, but as we talked about before, it's not always about creating the artifact.
Yeah.
It's so it's not just about the song or the film or the script or the short story. It's sometimes just about living an interesting life.
Mhm. Okay, you know what? I am actually taking some quick note here because you
Yeah.
triggered me. You want me to ask you another question. It might sound really cliche, but I still want to ask this question. So, right now, at this stage of your life, of course, we know that you've been traveling and still have a year-long travel.
Mm.
I want to ask, at this stage of your life, what is your order of these? Time, health, yourself, art, relationship, money, and wealth.
So like the list, the order of like priority.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, can you give those to me again?
Yes. Time, health, yourself, art, relationship, money, wealth.
Okay, myself come sounds like it comes first.
Yourself.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I won't even apologize for being selfish to a degree because again, I decided not to have kids, or it just wasn't a priority. So I think if I was living this lifestyle and was neglecting children, that selfishness would be not so great. But I feel like no, I've made my life relatively condensed, so
Mm-hmm.
I can be a little self-obsessed
Yeah.
without hurting anyone. So that uh, I know it's not health. Health is not number two. It should be. I mean, maybe should be number one, but it is not at this current moment.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean when you say time?
Time. I mean, you can understand in different ways, right? But I want to ask because
Okay,
mm-hmm.
I mean, I think about time all the time, but I'm not.
It's funny. I think of time all the time.
It's true. It's
Mm-hmm.
true. But I am not an efficient worker. I
Mm-hmm.
am not. I am not someone who maximizes my time very well,
Mm-hmm.
and I back and forth. Um, Sometimes feeling shitty about that, and then
Mm-hmm.
other times thinking like, who says that life needs to be efficient? Why is efficiency always the goal?
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, self Okay, I might have to place out of order. So I have so there's seven. I see you have them in front of you. I have to work on short-term memory here. So you said money and you said wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those are both toward the bottom. Um, what else was there? So that's four. What are the other three
Art,
I'm missing?
art,
Oh,
relationship.
okay. So art is number two.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship is number three.
Mm-hmm.
Time is number four.
Mm-hmm.
Money is number five, and wealth is it was seven or was it
Where's
six?
health? Where's your health?
Health. Oh shit. Health. Shit. Health is six and wealth is seven.
That's interesting. You know what? I've been reading some books in economies or finance. It sounds weird, but recently I've been reading those books. They were saying something that actually there's a huge difference between money and wealth. They're completely different. When they're talking in that book, when they're talking about money, they're talking about cash, right? But when they're talking about wealth, they're talking about something that it's more like your assets, right? Like my writing skills is one of my wealth, and my
Ah.
dancing skills is my one of my wealth. It might not bring me the instant cash, but this is my wealth. It's always here and it's accumulating, and one day will turn into something bigger that not even cash, but something bigger, something like that. I mean, I am understanding the money
Yes.
and wealth from this perspective. Hmm.
No, and you're right. And I often do think about that.
Hmm.
There's a poet friend of mine, Ariana Bosco, talk. So I don't know that. Well, then in that case, like wealth would go up higher because part of the way I'm living my life and my values
Hmm.
is to live a wealthy life, but the money is low.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so and then health has gone up and down. You know, you're asking me right now while I'm traveling, and I like haven't cooked a meal in 5 months. So I'm eating out a lot, but I walk a lot. So at least there's
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
that list may need to be restructured a little bit because yeah, like I actually do consider like my life very full, and
Hmm.
in that way I'm
Hmm.
wealthy. Um, but yeah, monetary assets less so.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, same. I've been reading those books in different disciplines. I think I am intentionally doing this to me right now because I want to jump out from art, even though I'm still artist, but I wanna absorb more knowledge outside of
Mm.
art. So that's why it's kind of refreshing my mind, also helping me right now. And that's why I wanted to ask you this question. I mean, it's pretty cliche. People always asking you to reordering and putting the priorities. But what I found
But I've
interesting
never been asked those specific seven before, so that
yeah,
was
but
new.
what I found interesting is always the thinking process during your ordering, because you're
Right.
thinking why and you're picking and you're thinking why this is important than the other one. Why I'm pick,
Mm-mm.
it's always interesting about the process. I mean, yeah, and I think we already spent a great time together, and we had a fun time about questions, and there's a lot of things that I felt we might need a second round. Honestly, I still
Happy
wanna,
to, happy
yeah,
to. Yeah.
I still wanna ask a lot about you, a lot of questions from you. But right now, let me wrap this up with our ritual. So,
Oh.
if this episode has a name, what do you want to call? What do you want to call it?
Mm. Let's see. Weird.
Weird,
Yeah.
just weird.
Sure.
Okay.
Uh, because I mean, we're talking a lot about me, and that is such a even though that only got mentioned later in our conversation,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think it is central to something else I really value.
Mm-hmm.
Is the good weird. So how about this? The good weird.
Good weird. Okay. Okay. I like that too. Good weird.
Yeah,
Nice.
the good weird.
Good weird. Okay.
With wait, but with the word the is important there.
The va,
No, the. So
the.
the good weird.
Gotcha. The good weird. Okay.
Yes. And I hope that is what I am. I hope that
Uh-huh.
I'm the good weird.
The good weird. I always felt there's a greater philosophy behind every words that you said. Even this, the good weird. I mean, right now we're just laughing, thinking it's funny or, hilarious, but I am always that kind of person. Sometimes it takes me a minute to reflect, but right
Mm.
now I'm already start thinking, what do you mean by the good weird? Because somehow we're putting this kind of two different directions works together, right? When we're talking about good, it's definitely positive. When we're talking about weird, sometimes it might mean something not really good. But when you put these two together, that makes me just thinking even more. I mean, artist mindset. So I'm always thinking that
Exactly.
way. Yeah, but anyways, it's a great time. We
Yeah,
spent
thank
great
you
time
for
together,
mm.
and it's just really fun. And I hope that we can do this again.
Absolutely. Yes, let's do it. And thanks anyone and everyone who watched. And yeah, talk to you next time.
Yeah, great. Well, we'll see you next time.